So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elena Camarasa. In Spanish, I think you can tell. So if I speak too fast, just give me a sign. Okay, I'm used to it. I'm a senior director in Kellanova. I'll explain what Kellanova is very soon. And I'm leading the supply chain digital transformation for the European business. And I'm here with my colleague, Toon. He'll introduce himself a bit later. And we're going to show you a bit our roadmap to make a supply chain digital transformation, which we have lived through. Yes, about Kellanova, I didn't put some slides, but if you haven't talked to us, you will be wondering what is that. So Kellanova actually is Kellogg's. So in November last year, we went through a spin. So part of our North America business split. And by then, we had to change the name. So basically, Kellanova is everything but what it used to be cereals North America. So we do cereals in all the regions but North America, plus all the snacks. And our biggest brand is Pringles, okay? So that's Kellanova. So today we said we wanted to give a slightly different turn, so to show, okay, roadmap. What is the digital roadmap? And I think we are all living through kind of digital roadmap in our companies. So how we split it is I try to get you a bit through my personal digital journey. So I'm not a digital person. I come from core supply chain, so actually I'm an engineer as a background, and how I lived and what I learned through this becoming a digital owner in Europe. Then I'll show you a bit how Kellanova's supply chain journey has evolved, what did we learn, and also there are moments where we really had to stop what we were doing and we had to rethink and restate it again, and that was around 1.5 years ago. And then Toon, he's going to give you some specific use cases that we are using in digitalization in our manufacturing and engineering function. Okay? Still not too fast? No? Okay, great. So my personal journey. So I want to make, and that's something I use, I was not born digital, and I never thought I would work in digital. And what I'm saying that is because at least in Kellanova, we see there are many people scared about the digital world, and they keep looking at IT, it's an IT thing, and it's not. And we should own a supply chain, our digital journey. We should, of course, partner with IT, but the big learning, and it'll come through the slides, is we need to own it. So it has to be the function that owns the journey. So yes, a bit of my personal journey. So I will not go through my CV. I'll just go very quick. I just wanted to show that. So I'm an engineer. I worked a lot in engineering, in manufacturing. Then I moved to procurement, external manufacturing, strategy. Then I had a role leading the supply chain teams in the markets, external manufacturing. So it's really very core supply chain, never nothing to do with IT. And then when I came back so after my third maternity leave, I came back, and then day one, I came back to the office, and they say, we just created a new role. You're going to be leading the digital transformation, so I report to the head of supply chain in Europe. And we never had this role in supply chain, it's always been IT. And by the way, you need to do it with a super small team. So you need to basically beg every function to give you somebody to try to help you. And then you need to prove me that it's worth to have a digital transformation team as such. Obviously, we have a lot of IT people, resources, et cetera, but not in this team. By the way, and I think you will reflect to that, it's like you need to solve all this. So we all hear digital is solution for everything. So we expect you to have end-to-end visibility, reduce cost, reduce waste, et cetera, you name it. So that's 1 year ago. So I just wanted to take you a bit what the thinking process has been and how we have been involving a bit Kellanova in the thinking process. So how did we approach it? And for me, was these three things really make it where we are today. So first was to make a super clear definition why we need a digital roadmap, what it is, and how we're going to get there. So why is really more like the ambition. What is what we need to deliver? So why is a digital roadmap versus continue what we're doing until now? So I don't know in your business, but Kellanova supply chain is it has been always very manufacturing driven. So it's very manufacturing lean. So actually, if you talk supply chain, everybody goes straight away to manufacturing. And for many years, they have forgotten all the rest, all the functions. So for the first time we are here, we were looking at it holistically. So from manufacturing all the way to order to cash. So once you have the why, the what, and the how, and have the functional alignment, was how to make it simple. Digital is something that really scares people. So it's how to make it as simple as possible. One of my big fights with IT has always been the wordings we use, because they use all these fancy wordings people cannot relate to, and at the end, when you scratch a bit, it's nothing so exotic about it. So it's like, why we keep inventing these names? So we did a lot of work, and actually, I was partnering with our comms plan to say, help me to do a super simple story that everybody can relate. A strategy, 3 words, and then we all use the same words. Because also, even with data management, there is like these super fancy pyramids with different names of calling a data owner, a data owner, and I say, okay, so this, make it simple and make it in words people really can relate to. And then, yeah, stakeholder management. So it's all around, I think everybody keeps talking about that, people change management, how to get people in the journey. But honestly, if you have the clear why, what, and how, and a simple roadmap with very simple wording, it's much, much easier to get people on board. So before I take you a bit into the details, how we did in Kellanova, I keep referring Kellogg from time to time. I have not been used to the name change yet. But so just wanted some of the key takeaways I took myself during the journey. So the first one is embrace digital transformation. There is no way out of it. It's not scary, so let's all embrace digital transformation independently of your background. No need to be born digital. That supply chain is owning it is super helpful. So what we have now, and I'll explain a bit later, we have a digital roadmap, and we have a tech roadmap, which owns IT. Obviously, we are working super close together, so one will not live without the other one, but we are very clearly splitting both. And we, as the function, own our digital roadmap. You need to involve the functions, so the functions needs to be, so it cannot be a central team doing digital transformation, and then you need to go and convince your planning team, your transport team, your manufacturing. So basically, now finally I got some resources, but I also got quite a lot of people from the functions, 50% of their time, so then the functions own the digital roadmap. Fix fundamentals, but engage people. So I'll show you a bit later on how we are approaching the steps of projects. So before you transform, you make sure you have your fundamentals right. But one of the key things we learned is people get disengaged very easily. So if you only tell them, use the system you have, clean your data, that's it, you lose them very quick. So we were trying to find 4 mechanisms to how do we engage them in the journey. So this will take maybe 2-3 years to get what you really want to get the fundamentals is right. Maybe it's not the most fancy work, but how we can make it fancy. So we started to put a lot of recognition on data, a lot of when there is a project about optimizing and using MRP, MRP should be like, why we are not using MRP was people were not trained, they didn't find it fancy. But we did a project there, and then we published it as much as a transformation or a new digital twin. So we really make those people feel it's really important, and we're giving you credibility for that. So fix the fundamentals, but you need to find a way to engage the people in that process. Data is key. I think everybody's talking about data. If you don't have your data right, you will never succeed. So we have it all over the place, data, data, data. We are putting it in the core of our strategy. And it's a journey. So the first thing when I was given the job was, this is your project. I said, it's not a project, it's a journey. I mean, you cannot treat it as a project because it will always be evolving. So yes, you will have sub-projects during the digital transformation or your roadmap, but it's not a project. It's a continuous evolving journey. So, said that. I was not born digital, but I'm honestly making it my strength. So people are joking in supply chain, so are you moving to IT? I say, no, I'm converting more and more supply chain people into digital because we should be digital and we should be proud of it. So, second, take a time check, okay. Speed, it's okay? Good. You can see I'm obsessed with my speed. Our journey. So the biggest thing when they gave me this role was, obviously there was a lot of things going on already. And supply chain is huge, and we are, I don't know how many people we are in Europe, like 3,000 people, and there were quite a lot of things going on. But it was very functional digitalization, and we say how we can move from a functional digitalization through a truly end-to-end supply chain digital roadmap. And I say, and beyond, that's work ongoing. So how we put it is, it's been a journey for us. So we really started, and I'll explain a bit more details and examples of very functional tools optimization. So you will go to a factory, and we have actually very advanced factories where you can have, and Toon will show you some examples of super cool digital twins, AI in the factory. But it's really like very functional driven. Then we started to see that some of the functions were getting more advanced and getting more connected between them. So we moved from functional tools to functional digitalization. But then what we realized very quick is that's not taking us to be a supply chain digital, and I'll come there. And then our end goal is we should be total enterprise. So yes, to have an end-to-end supply chain is great, but if we are not connecting to finance, procurement, supply chain, finance or R&D, then we'll never be in the right journey. So functional tools, so for us what we were looking at is there were a lot of use cases in the digital world, and to be fair, it was the right thing to do at the moment in time. And don't get me wrong, they are super good use cases, they all pay out, super great improvement of OE, et cetera. So there was good reason to do that. The problem is very quick, we started to move to more functional digitalization, and we were starting to see a lot of use cases popping up in the different functions, and they were not necessarily working together, but mainly against each other. And I'm going to give you a very stupid example, but it was one of these aha moments. So we were putting a lot of automation in the factories. How you do your quality checks, it used to be all paper, so we don't want paper, paperless, let's do all through like apps, smart factory, et cetera. So what was happening? The factory will have everything automatized, but centrally you could not see anything. So then you had somebody putting in Excel the data you had from your smart factory to send it centrally for somebody centrally to do an Excel pivot table to put it in Tableau. So it's like, okay, it will not work. So what we did at that moment in time is say, if we really want to move to a supply chain digitalization, we need to rethink how we're doing that. And they were for two things. One is we are not getting connected end-to-end, but the second one is we were looking at some functions that were really left behind. So they were really not involving, and it was mainly because they were missing the fundamentals. For example, our end-to-end planning tool. So that's our area that is more behind at this moment in time. So how we reapproached this was we say, okay, we're going to start with a supply chain roadmap, and we need to focus on the fundamentals. So we started to divide everything into tools, data, processes, and people. And then everything around tools and data is classified. And if you talk to anybody in Kellanova now in any function, we always talk about optimize, enhance, transform. So transform is where you look for a new planning tool, a new procurement tool, so where you're looking at new technology. Optimize is everything like, let's make sure we use the things we have. And that's, and we are not using it, what's the root cause? So that's where you come with the processes and the data. So we realize there is a lot of systems we are not using because people are not trained, because the data was not there, or the process was not written. And then in enhance, what we were trying to do is, if you stay too long in optimize before you move to transform, we lost people. So with enhance, we are bringing small tools that is helping them to do their job in a more digital ways, but without changing really the core. And then for processes and people, then we realize as we are moving in optimize and enhance, getting ready for transform in some areas, we need to get the right fundamentals about having the center of excellence, to have processes. And that's one of the key learnings was why in manufacturing we were advising much more quicker than in planning, for example, is because in our manufacturing plants we have lean, or equivalent of lean, is in the blood of manufacturing. So there is super clear skill matrix, COEs, whatever you call it. I'm sure that we use different names that you use, but it's the lean process. And it's super strong there, which meant that every time they wanted to do something from digital or a project, at the end it will stick. So then it was built. What was happening in planning? We were doing small things, but there was not center of excellence, there was not processes, so whatever we did, 2 years later, everybody was back in Excel. So what we are doing now in the different areas is getting everybody in the same place from processes and people, while we are working in the optimize and enhance to get us ready to transform. So that's our journey. And then the other thing that we are now doing, which is very different from before, is we have a much clearer North Star, so where do we want to go? And we have a very strong governance. So we don't allow or approve any digital project anywhere in supply chain in the organization, that it doesn't come through the governance process, and we will not do anything that helps a function, but it will help the long term. And we are having some tough conversations because there are projects that will come with a very good IIR, so the payback in a year, but if they go against the roadmap, we are blocking them. So we are classifying absolutely every project. Does it help? Okay, those ones, the easy ones, just go. Is it neutral? Well, then we have discussions because yes, you'll consume resources, etc., but you are paying, you have a good saving case, fine. But if it's hurting, it needs to stop. And the good thing now is we have management in alignment with that. We are trying to get the same North Star for the enterprise, which is getting a bit more, because one thing is to say to do this hurts, is neutral for supply chain, but if it hurts the enterprise, you start with some politics, etc. But we are in the process to try to even get that governance at an enterprise level in Kellanova. Just to recap, so for me, what is needed, or some of the key was, we need to have a very clear end goal. Simple, standard message, and super good communication plan. So you cannot believe like my comms plan, like I have like 3,000 slides, and I'm forced to talk to every department every month and to every. So we are really taking very seriously change management and comms plans to get people more and more on board. Super clear roadmap of what's there for the function, but how is the total looking like. Very simple, optimize, enhance, transform. Double down on fundamentals, data, processes, and people. And super strong governance. So if you have a North Star, put a strong governance and then stick to it. So this is the roadmap for Kellanova. And now we're going, okay, I know I talked very generistic, so now you're going to have some very specific examples from Toon. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, and good afternoon to all. So indeed, I will basically build on what Elena has already shared with all of you, and I'll give you two very tangible use cases where we are transforming manufacturing today within Kellanova. Now, before I go there, let me just tell you where I fit into the story, so you can position me. I have about 14 years of experience within supply chain. I've done various roles, but also very much taken the kind of manufacturing engineering career track. But I ended up proficient in program management. And I think Elena is right to say that what we're doing, it's not a project, it's a journey. But what we do know is that change management is a key element here. So in that sense, a lot of the methodologies from program management, the communication, all of that makes a lot of sense. So that's one. Two, for info, I have a degree in mathematics and I have a degree in engineering. And for me, it helps me to basically assess the difference between AI buzz, because we all know there's a lot of that, and let's say the real meat on the bone. So that's two. And then the third point, probably the most important one, is that I'm a strong believer in the potential of AI. And the way I like to look at it is basically, it can feel a little bit cumbersome at first, but I strongly believe that if, as a company, you want to be there in 10, 20 years, you better find a way to embed AI into some of your key processes. Because in the long run, the efficiency gains, once you manage to get AI built in, the efficiency gains you can expect will be significantly more than continuing as usual, let's say. So in that sense, I like to refer to this quote from Paul Krugman, which is, you're probably familiar with it, but it's productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it pretty much is. And that's, I think, the way I approach also the digital transformation. Now, another picture I wanted to, before I go into the use case, I wanted to show you is this one. And of course, we're Kellanova. We make snacks and foods to delight our consumers. And here as well, just sharing you, I guess, how I look at things is consumer behavior is not fundamentally going to shift. People will always look for the convenience of a snack or the joy it brings into their life. But it's the world around us that we all know is, of course, fundamentally changing. And a little bit more on that. I hate to bring you back, I guess, to the COVID time not too long ago, but this was one of the themes from World Economic Forum coming out of COVID, if you remember. So it's basically the Great Reset. And the idea was, after COVID, we will all have suddenly realized the importance of supply chains and how sensitive they can be to disruptions. And we'll all have realized that actually we can do a lot more of this remote kind of digital work. And if we grow after COVID, we'll grow with a zero carbon footprint. A lot of those ideas were let's say, live at that time. And the question is, these days, are we actually going through the Great Reset, or is it that we've kind of fell back to maybe we don't really need to do it? And again, my view on this is if you want to be successful this year, next year, you're fine, doing as we do today. If you think ahead 20 years, we have to get traction with these. I think that's enough of a general kind of positioning, as I promised you 2 use cases. And the first one, it's where we used a digital twin within our packaging. So Kellanova, we have a couple of manufacturing hubs in Europe, and we've developed this digital twin of a packaging machine, and we've used it for rapid prototyping, parameter optimization, and accelerating our lean manufacturing journey. Now that's very generic, of course. I'll talk you through the specifics, and I'll kind of go through these 3 steps. So the business context, the fundamentals, and then how we actually got started to get some traction on this. And the business context, I can be very specific in a sense. I'm talking, you've seen the Pringles can before, and that Pringles can, it's been a fundamental part of our Pringles brand. So if you think about what is the Pringles brand, it's not just a chip, it's also the can. It's one and the same. I mean, it's part of the same experience. And still rather recently, we came to the conclusion that the packaging we've been using for decades, actually, is not going to be sufficient for us to go into the future. I'm talking requirements with regards to sustainability, ease of recycling, moving to a circular environment, expectations from consumers. Our previous packaging was technically recyclable, but in practice, we didn't actually see it being widely recycled because of some specifics of the packaging. So that's the context, and actually in little time we had to adapt new to the world technology, hence the new packaging machinery, to make this happen. No time for a typical development cycle, where the typical cycle would have been you develop your packaging, you develop technology to actually run, you do some piloting, you then take a step-by-step approach before you start. You're not going to take any risks with a billion-dollar brand for Europe. But we didn't have the time. So we focused on getting the basics right, which is know your strengths, but in that sense also your limitations. So while we're obviously strong on developing the food and making a proposition for the consumer, we looked for partners on paper technology, but also digital. So we partnered with Siemens as a company, actually. So that's 1. 2, maintaining focus. So by then we basically already made our mind of if we have to go fast and actually fast-track this new technology implementation, we want to use digital technologies, but we want it to actually help us out, speeding things up rather than slow us down. So we needed focus. Of course, that's project governance, all of that, but it's also being very clear on where do my risks sit. So it's nothing special in a way. It's what you should do for any project of this kind. And don't forget what you learned with regards to program management, but also communication, lean manufacturing, all of that. So nothing too special there. But we did actually get a first digital twin after just 2 weeks. Like I mentioned, we approached Siemens. We kind of got them on board. 2 weeks after, we had the first digital twin. And right now, this is roughly slightly more than a year ago. So right now, we're at iteration 3. And to give you a feel for actually what does it give you, In this particular case, just two items. Yeah? At one point, we tested 400 different machine parameters and settings in an afternoon. Something that if you had to actually set up experiments to actually do this, it would have taken you lots of resources, time at the line, multiple weeks. So that's one example. Another example is we even went to test multiple hardware configurations of a machine. So thinking about what if we change out this component with this component, those kind of elements. Here as well, doing elements in kind of order of magnitude of a week or so, what would otherwise have probably taken months. That's case one, but I also want to share, of course, some really kind of learnings. Yeah, and the first one to consider is you're all familiar with the 80-20 rule. And it definitely applies. I mentioned we had the first digital twin just a few weeks after we started working on this. You can imagine this is not the full machine with every little detail, yeah, like a perfect replica. This was where we were very specific on, look, we need to work on these, and these elements. And if you want to actually push this to 100%, you're probably going to either spend a lot of money, a lot of time, just killing your business case, or you might actually never get there. So 80-20 applies. If you spend 20% of the effort for 80% of the returns, I think you should be happy. Second, be humble and let big data decide. So in this case, we were working with a lot of, let's say, engineers, R&D engineers, and typically they have this mental picture of what the machine or the product or kind of how the material will behave. So whenever you say test parameters, they probably, at occasions they came with a list like this is probably the top 5. We just need to decide between these 5. It does pay off to just say, look, we now have this, just feed the machine data, test 400 parameters. Why not? And it did give us new insights. And the last learning there is go crazy in the virtual world. Because initially, our technical teams, we gave them this digital tool, this digital twin, and they said, look, we want to do some real-life tests in a couple of weeks or months from now. Let's already do this in the digital world. So to get some early insights. And it's very valuable. But the real value comes from going crazy. Yeah? What if you just change components of your packaging material drastically, run the machine at twice the speed? All of those kind of crazy scenarios. Even if you never actually do them, it gives you a lot of insights. So that's the first use case. And I guess it's still very easy to grasp in a sense that you can probably imagine, yes, you're building some kind of a digital replica of a machine and it gives you some insights. It's an engineering tool to a large extent. But we took it further. And use case 2 is actually about making a digital twin of the food and the food processing. And to a large extent, even in let's say, industrial food factories, it's still an art. Yeah? Food, you're talking proteins, water, all of those chemical interactions. It's not exact science in a way. So it's still an art. But we did go ahead and build a digital twin. This is another representation of both the food and the machines, the process manipulating the food. So we used digital twin for creating a co-pilot initially to reduce losses, improve yield, improve quality. That's step 1. That's what we actually see today. That's what we're doing today. And second, Elena spoke as well about end-to-end, going beyond, I guess, the problem at hand. And in this case, we're also preparing to make the switch, to go to rapid formula cycling. And what it means basically is that if you have a digital replica of your food and your process, if you hand this to an R&D, a food developer, they can play with this. Yeah? They can say, what if I actually use these or these raw ingredients? How well does it run on my process? What kind of food do I get out? I won't say we have this today, but that's what we're kind of aspiring to. I'll go in a little bit more detail here. So I'll basically make the same build-up. The business challenge in this case, as you can imagine, is, for one, climate change. We can't necessarily assume that crop quality will be up to the same consistency season to season, year to year. We have to expect, and we see it today, of course, but we have to expect there will be variation. Same for, in that sense, pricing. Yeah? You should expect pricing to fluctuate more. And actually, as a company, I mean, is that a challenge, or is it something you can actually use as an opportunity? There's other elements, nutritional regulatory requirements that may require you to change fast. So there is definitely value in rapid innovation cycling. Second point there, so get the basics right. In this case, know your strengths, find strong partners. I also created an end-to-end team. R&D, IT, engineering, legal, operations, that's internal. And external, I already mentioned, we're partnering with the Siemens company here as well. And then getting the basics right. In this case, it is basically apply and trust the scientific process. So we actually have data scientists coming up with hypotheses. Then they're going to basically, we have a test set up, and then we either say, was our hypothesis right, yes or no? So to make that more specific, if we get these or these or these parameters, whether it's near-infrared signatures or whether it's just a kind of particle size of wheats or other kind of raw ingredients, do they tell us something about this aspect of the final product? Yes or no? We set up a test and we validate. So that's the approach. And then think big, get moving, especially in this case, think big and get moving. So we equipped multiple of our processes with sensory devices, started to collect data, and basically work our way up through this kind of step up, yeah? So first of all, can we actually mimic or correlate data, input, outputs? Because once you have that, you can predict. You can say, actually, if you use these or these materials, this is going to be the result. Improve, better or worse, let's say. And if you have that, you can start to simulate. And if you can simulate, of course, you can optimize. So in that sense, we don't know exactly where we'll land with this. But so far, we have confidence in the process. And I also want to share some kind of learnings on this one. I already mentioned trust the process, let the data decide. This process where we basically have these hypotheses and we let basically the data scientists prove whether they hold yes or no. And it links kind of to point number 2, which is let's focus on building trust in the model, and then the business benefits, they will be there. Yeah? I know already because this is a piloting phase, this particular example I'm giving you, I know the pilot will pay for itself. Because right now we already see the predictive power of these models, and it will reduce scrap, it will improve yield, and it will pay for the pilot. Everything else, we just want to make sure, can we build more and more trust in this predictive power of these models? Because then, when I have something here that I can basically hand over to procurement or R&D, the benefits will be exponential. So in that sense, I don't think we have to worry about that. 3 then is managing different timescales. It's a little bit like what I mentioned, yeah? You're probably not going to keep attention very long if you only focus on benefits 10 years out, as you can imagine. So it's finding that balance between near-term benefits, long-term benefits. And then 4, prepare for change management. To be honest, use case 1 I shared is very much within a rather contained, I think you get that, yeah? It's in specific engineering kind of development case. You can manage change in that environment. Here as well, so far it's very much kind of, we're helping operators out to to improve yield, reduce losses. Change management is, it's not that huge challenge, but if you're like me and you kind of see where this is going, if you have this kind of digital model of your food, the way you develop food, the way you set up products, the way you kind of engage and develop your marketing plans, even your roadmaps, it's going to be fundamentally different. So I did at least also want to kind of inspire you with a little bit of the thinking, and I'd be happy, of course, to hear your thoughts on all of this. Because this kind of concludes our kind of Kellanova presentation. And of course, I just want to thank you for listening in. And we have a few minutes for, in case there's comments, questions, builds. Of course, that would be nice. Thank you.
I've got a question for Elena. You mentioned data accuracy and the process. I was wondering, what is your suggestion for best practice in data governance?
For me, what is been working out very well, which didn't work last year, is we are starting very small and we are building it from, so we have where we want to get, and we're starting to use small, so maybe I'm contradicting to what I say about the use cases, but in this case, we are doing use cases. So for example, we did MRP. So MRP, we did data intervention, data, so we did everything there, put the 8, I don't know if you're familiar with the 8 steps of data governance, so we did it there. Then you have the owners, etc. Then we did the same one in PPDS. We've done so in several areas, and what we are starting to now do is to build and connect the dots to give, to put the governance in place. The other thing we've done is people hate being data owners, okay? And they always see it as on top. So what we've done is every time we touch a process and we have reduced the time they use, so MRP, for example, they reduced what they were doing in Excel, doing in MRP 30%. We started to say, we are going to convert your hours, so we are not going to reduce your, remove your headcount, we're going to convert your hours in something else. So as of now, out of this 30%, 10% you're going to be data, 20% you are going to do something different. So we are engaging the people like that, but we are starting like small pilots using super simple messaging, talking about transforming. So it's not this coming on top of your work, because people have a bit of a fish memory. So they don't remember 2 months ago they were spending 5 more hours a week doing something in the Excel. So, but we are very clearly saying, out of these 5 hours, now 2 is data. So this is not coming on top. It's now, so it's building that. And we are now in, like, I would say in the 3rd layer. So we are starting to connect 2 or 3 like work streams to get to the 3rd with the intention at the end of the year to have the supply chain full data governance. And now my challenge back to IT, and maybe I have some of them, is now how do I help the teams to do this in a more digitalized ways? Because we already use the now make sure you clean your data. Now that's when enhance comes. Let's help them to do it in a more efficient way once the basics is there. Okay.
On the digital twin, I understood that you guys started, but is the ambition that when you change some ingredients in the product, you can go backwards in your supply chain and foresee everything, the impact?
So yes, so the idea, if the second use case, we're not there today yet, but we're building up to that, is that you have a digital twin you have your bill of material, but in addition to that, you have a full digital twin, meaning if I go from supplier A to supplier B, I know in advance whether it's going to work, yes or no. Yeah? If you have new nutritional requirements, the model can give you some insights in actually, you can run these and these ratios of ingredients, and they will run, and they actually give you the nutritional requirement. Or how big of a change you can do within the existing label requirements. Because, of course, you're not just going to change ingredients overnight if it requires you to change label and packaging. But how far can you go and actually meet those label requirements while still solving some or optimizing some kind of constraint? So that is the idea, is actually making that link between food development, making the food, the manufacturing part, and then the kind of procurement ERP elements of it.
Example how we are moving from use case silo. So in the past 2 years ago, we would have done the business case to solve the problem or in the factory waste, that's it. Everybody's happy. Now we are looking really like, okay, what else can it be used? So R&D is now getting involved, procurement is getting involved. So we start to connect the things together and try to get to more end-to-end.
My view, this is brilliant. We spend a lot of time on product development, months and months. Competition are faster than us. Yes, if we have something like this,
we are in pilot, but to be fair, the first results are super. So we had a lot of, that's where change management people against this, like it will never work. You can never have a digital twin of your food process. There is 15,000. And actually what they are seeing, the results, they are like, blow mind.
yeah, but I like your mindset. You need to be bold, you need to challenge things, because it's exactly the thinking. It's too complex. There are other things to resolve. But
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, maybe one more thing to build on that is, it does seem. I mean, probably none of very few of us are have any real expertise in the details of these AI models, but it does seem something has changed, because we've tried some smaller versions of what I talked about, let's say 10 years ago, and we didn't succeed. But it's almost like, if you think about ChatGPT, those kind of elements, it seems that what has changed is not necessarily that suddenly there is some new insights around how these models could work, but it's just there's more data, and PCs can handle more data. And we've seen this exactly, because we've repeated an experiment from 10 years ago, which was a failure 10 years ago. Back then, we tried to link certain properties from ingredients to the quality parameters. But we had to be very selective with just using few data spots. And right now, we just said, look, here is just huge data streams, and it makes the difference. So, yeah. At most, maybe one more question.
Close to requirements in terms of either packaging or in quality across the globe. So obviously one of the brand thing is to hit that perfect taste no matter where you are in the world. But two things. One is not everyone does it the same. There's some variation, as you'd expect. But the other thing, just talking about your digital twin, is can you move us closer to the edge, then change your packaging, and it's continuous and seamless because you've moved us to the edge where you need to go to get better sourcing or
I think so, yes, and I don't think the limitations are clear yet, but for sure 80-20 rule will apply here as well. So if you're talking, let's say, the taste of the product, yeah, today I have not seen anything indicating that we can predict the taste of the end product. It's really around, you can predict about how well will it actually, what's the consistency, how well will it stick together, those kind of elements, which are a part of the quality of the product. But yeah, the whole taste, of course, is subjective, and it's an art still, I would say. Yeah.
They haven't given up even in the taste. What they're saying is they are getting, the good thing about these models is really think big. I don't know how many sensors they put. They're planning to put more sensors. So there are so many things and so much new technology that anything is possible. Maybe we'll be able to predict smell and taste from the model. So.
Good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.